Man, March of the Machines is right around the corner, brothers. I cannot help myself. I'm gonna brew some budget commander decks. Listen, all I do is I sit in my house, I brew decks. That's what I do. March of the Machines is nigh upon us, only a few weeks away. So let's start brewing up some budget decks that can hang with the more expensive decks at your commander table. The set is shaping up to have some really interesting mashups, cards that speak to the heart of the brewer. First up in March of the Machines budget series is going to be Goro Goro and Satoru. Alright man, we got Goro Goro and Satoru. It's a blue mana, a black mana, and a red mana for a legendary creature Goblin Human. Whenever one or more creatures you control that entered the battlefield this turn deal combat damage to a player, create a 5/5 red dragon spirit creature token with flying. One in a red, creatures you control gain haste until end of turn to 3/4. A goblin and a human. These two were stuntmen top of their game who had this fantastic run in the John Wick movies. Neither was super handsome or charismatic, but they had a lot of history together and they became best friends over beers during their tenure. After Rap, Keanu Reeves, he was really impressed with him. He bankrolled Satoru's screenplay about a cop and a drag queen who unravel a human trafficking ring called Sergeant Sashimi and The Gob. With Keanu as the director and executive producer, the movie made about $14 million gross, and with his share of the proceeds, Keanu Reeves built a children's hospital. So let's build a deck and do a deep dive in on these animals. And as ever, if you like the video, subscribe, give a like. You want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at the link in the description. So we have a card that's a ninjutsu payoff. It's a haste enabler and a haste payoff all in the same card. This deck is going to be heavily reliant on the commander, so you may be recasting them after they eat removal, which is okay because these two cuddly buddies only cost 3 mana. We're getting in and out for $70, and that includes a decent mana base. Now the basic strategy here is to bang in with an unblockable creature, ninja in a ninja, and make a dragon, right? There are 7 1-drops that can't be blocked, while one has flying but close enough, and we'll talk about that guy next. I love this card, Thousand Face Shadow, 1 blue mana for a creature, human ninja. It's a 1/1 with ninjutsu, 2 blue, has flying. When Thousand Face Shadow enters the battlefield from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. The token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. Man, look at those cool faces he's carrying around. That's how he flies, dude. He surfs around on some techno-magical faces. This thing is like 50 cents, brother. And worst comes to worst, you just make a token of a dragon spirit. Then you got cards like Gudul Lurker, you got the Mist Cloak Herald out there. These guys are lurking through the weeds, they're doing stakeouts for Sergeant Sashimi and the Gob. Then comes the old Tormented Soul and Changeling Outcast. These guys are masters of disguise. They're out there impersonating indigent spirits and stuff, doing all kinds of entrapments out there. And there are an equal amount of hard to block 2-drops. You got Germawing Swiftwing out there. It's a great card to plop down and swing at your buddy and make a dragon spirit. Loyal Apprentice. This card goes in a lot of decks. It's 1 in a red for a creature, human artificer. It's a 2/1 with haste. It has Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. That token gains haste until end of turn. I need to find myself a very special friend who looks at me the way this artificer is looking at Mr. Hands over there. She's making spy gear. She's doing the fancy drag gear for the Gob, dude. Who knows what she's doing? Dimir Infiltrator is a blue and a black for a creature spirit. It's a 1/3. It can't be blocked. Don't even try. Has Transmute for 1 in a blue and a black. Transmute is an excellent ability to have access. You can sculpt your 2-drop options if you want to, but this is just an unblockable buddy, really. He's creeping through the trees. He's grabbing lunch. He's looking fabulous in his bone armor. Then we have Allura, Merry Thief. 2 in a blue for a legendary creature, Halfling Rogue. It's a 3/2. Whenever you attack, up to 1 target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. She's cheekily kind of showing her little crow buddy her burgling tools, alright? Allura had a lot of health problems as a result of some congenital defects, but she was very passionate about helping Sergeant Sashimi get the evidence he needed to put away those bad guys. Speaking of which, look at this dastardly dude. You got Grasselax out there. He's an Illithid Scholar. He's 1 blue for a legendary creature, Horror. It's a 3/2. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand. That's great in this deck. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's also awesome in this deck. This guy played the villain in the Sergeant Sashimi and the Gob movie, and he was doing all that human trafficking so he could eat their brains with his cosmic horror buddies. I mean, you want to snack on somebody's brains, that's your problem. But the whole point of this deck is dealing damage to multiple opponents, and this guy helps keep our hands full. And you got Satoru Umizawa. Before he partnered up with the Gob, he was a very pensive guy, as you can see in this art. 1 blue and a black for a legendary creature, human ninja. It's a 2/4. Whenever you activate a ninjutsu ability, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This ability triggers only once each turn. Each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu, 2 blue and a black. So this guy is also known as Sergeant Sashimi. This guy's family brains were eaten by the Grasselax, and he has sworn revenge. Nothing says revenge like a dude brooding in a chair with mechanical hands, am I right? Then we got the old survivors. 3 and a red for a creature, tiefling peasant. Interesting, it's a 0/4 with trample and myriad. As long as L2L survivors is attacking, it gets +X+O, where X is the number of lands defending player controls. I mean, these guys, they're fighting with desperate courage, let me tell you that. I just think this is a cool card. Myriad is great in a deck like this, and this guy has a pretty decent chance of triggering our commander multiple times. Later in the movie, the Gob distracts Grasselax with a drag routine. It's a whole musical number, while Sergeant Sashimi frees the prisoners that Grasselax hasn't eaten yet, and these guys, they go through and wreak havoc on his camp. That's these guys scrapping and surviving. Look at old fur Crag out there. He's a cunning instigator, brother. There's 3 blue and a red for a legendary creature dragon. It's a 3/3 with flying and haste. Whenever one or more dragons you control attack an opponent, goad target creature that player controls. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, if that creature had to attack this combat, you put a +1/+1 counter on Fur Crag, Cunning Instigator, and you draw a card. This guy can draw you a fair amount of cards. It has evasion and haste too, and he looks cool. What the heck else do you want from me, brother? So then we got 15 ninjas in this deck. I call them the Ninja Squad. In a budget deck, we don't have some of the more expensive ninjas. There are some that are upwards of $20. But there are great utility ninjas that fit great in a budget deck. We got the Dokuchai silencers out there silencing the idiots at the comedy show, heckling the poor comedian. Hey, shut it. Then you got cool old cards like this, the Moon Circuit Hacker out there hacking the moon, getting us card advantage. Take a look at Nashi here, Moon Sage's Scion. 1 black for a legendary creature, Rat Ninja. It's a 3/2 with ninjutsu, 3 and a black. Whenever Nashi Moon Sage Scion deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of each player's library. Until the end of turn, you may play one of those cards. If you cast the spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. Ah, those sweet words every Magic player wants to hear. Let me whisper it in your mind. Without paying its mana cost. Hell yeah, brother. Well, you're paying life instead of paying the mana cost. You're not doing it without paying the mana cost. But anyway, we got Prosperous Thief out there. I was wondering what the heck happened to my fish, dude. There it is. Now, who the heck would steal a fish? That's an insane thing to do. I'll tell you who. Ingenious Infiltrator. Solid with a total of 15 ninjas. It's going to help keep our hand full. So I'll mention these 2 cards here, but we have 2 similarly useful cards to help draw. And that's Biden of Thassa and Reconnaissance Mission. We're packing quite a few unblockable and evasive creatures, and what is more flavorful for a buddy cop movie themed commander deck than a little recon? And also a Biden. Yeah, you put the Biden out there and you start thinking about Joe Biden, dude, where he's talking about corn pop at the swimming pool. He was a bad dude, man. How about some planeswalkers to help set things off? We got Kaido Shizuki out there. He's driving a Suzuki. He's 1 blue and a black for a legendary planeswalker with loyalty 3. At the beginning of your end step, if this guy enters the battlefield this turn, he phases out. +1, draw a card, then discard a card unless you attack this turn. -2, create a 1/1 blue ninja creature token with this creature can't be blocked. That's good for this deck. -7, you get an emblem with whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a blue or black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. That's rad. This guy out here hanging with his Tanuki brother. You got Kaito Dancing Shadow, 2 blue and a black for a legendary planeswalker Kaito with loyalty 3. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may return one of them to its owner's hand. If you do, you may activate loyalty abilities of Kaito twice this turn rather than only once. Has a +1, up to 1 target creature can attack or block until your next turn. 0, draw a card, which is great. -2, create a little colorless drone that has death touch, and when it leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. I don't know, man. Kaito just looks cool. He's a cyberpunk man, and he's Sergeant Sashimi's commanding officer. I told you, Sashimi, 1 more screw up and I'll have your badge. But at the end of the movie, he actually falls in love with one of the drag queens and they adopt a pit bull together. And you round out the deck with some removal, some counter magic, a couple board wipes, maybe get cheeky out there and put in Crux of Fate because you're making off all those dragons, dude. You can just blast off, brother. This is a very powerful commander. Seems fun because you can holler ninjutsu at people and get 20 flying power on the board by turn 5 or so. This is a fun deck. I like it. Listen, Enjoy all your ninjutsu, friends. Snicky G for Better Commander signing off.